Remember the peace speech in November 1989, when the Cold War in Berlin ended? Yeah, this story might be about Berlin, but it has nothing to do with peace. In that very year of supposed peace, James Gascoigne, a British intelligence agent, is running for his life in the cold streets of Berlin. But unfortunately for him, his op gets to him and rams his car repeatedly into him. The op, who turns out to be the infamous Bachtin,
I always thought if I got tagged it would be by the best.
The lowest of the low in the list of bad guys, shoots the injured James, grabs a special wristwatch from his cold wrist, and tosses the lifeless body into the river. Fast forward to the present day, and Lorraine, another British intelligence agent, is taking an ice bath in preparation for her CIA interrogation appointment. In the interrogation room, Lorraine is put on record with two higher-ups, Eric Gray from the British intelligence, and Emmett Kurtzfeld from the CIA, ready to squeeze every ounce of information from her British arse. Lorraine requests that Kurtzfeld be removed from the room if they want to get anything out of her, but Gray, Kurtzfeld's partner, refuses and reminds Lorraine that she isn't the one pulling the strings. Pissed by Lorraine's insolence, Kurtzfeld growls that he was also present in Berlin and sarcastically offers to stay behind the mirror to make her more comfortable. Lorraine curses out the sarcastic old dirtbag, and when Kurtzfeld tries to pick up a bone with her, she urges them to begin their interrogation. Gathering his composure, Eric asks Lorraine to start from the genesis of it all, Berlin. A few days before everything went down,
Lorraine.
Gray and one Mr. C summoned Lorraine to the office, and in that meeting, Gray and C inform Lorraine about the death of James Gascoigne, her co-worker, and reveal that on the night of his death, James had met with a Stasi officer, codenamed Spyglass, who had been promised immunity by the British intelligence in exchange for a document hidden in a Swiss watch, codenamed The List. Gray continues that the said list contains the names of every clandestine officer and all their shady deals capable of extending the Cold War for 40 years. He adds that James Gascoigne was killed and stripped of the merchandise the night before by some Yuri Bachtin, a KGB hatchet man with more than a dozen confirmed kills. Mr. C adds that since everyone and their pets are willing to take out anyone to get their hands on the list, it is Lorraine's mission to bring the list home with the help of one David Percival, the British intelligence agency's eyes and ears in Berlin. On the other hand, in Berlin, just as Percival is about to trade the list with Spyglass, who had claimed to memorize the full list in exchange for getting his captured family, the cops raid the gathering, and everyone scrams like ants in a flooded colony. Seeing that Percival is cornered, Spyglass dips, forcing the crazy agent to face the policemen alone. Within seconds, Percival mucks up the officers, steals their car and uniform, and rams the burning car into a wall for distraction. While the policemen try to attack the now empty car, Percival slips into the underground tunnels unscathed. The following day, Percival wakes up to two clothless leeches lying in bed with him and quickly gathers himself for the day's mission. Meanwhile, at the Berlin airport, Lorraine, who is secretly being watched by Delphine, a French intelligence officer, is led into a taxi by two KGB men. She suspects the subtle but strange mannerisms of the two men, grabs her shoe, and digs it into one of their chests. After dealing with the one beside her, Lorraine faces the driver, and from there, the situation graduates into a bloody spiral, but Lorraine manages to come out unscathed. Percival and his late arse links up with Lorraine, his contact, and cleanse up the quick mess she had created. In the interrogation room, Lorraine confesses to Gray and Kurtzfeld that the only information Percival had given her that day was to blend into the crowd and work on the easiest way to dip in and out of the dangerous city cleanly. Back in the east side of Berlin, Alexander Bremovich, a Russian boss, deceives one of his boys to dance and smacks the living daylights out of him, while the other lackeys watch in horror. As Bremovich is treating his boy's mess up, a Russian agent tries to convince him to hand over Spyglass, but Bromovich reminds Mr. Russian's smarty pants that no list equals no spyglass. Undisturbed by Bromovich's uninterestedness, the Russian agent pulls out a picture of Bakhtin for Bromovich and his men to find and get the list. Meanwhile, on the street, Delphine, the French intelligence baddie, takes a picture of Lorraine, who is on her way to claim James's body. Unfortunately for Lorraine, the saucy doctor clocks that something doesn't add up in her passport and refuses to release the body despite Lorraine's attempt to persuade her. After her usual ice bath, Lorraine senses a stranger's in her apartment. She sneakily grabs a whiskey bottle and smashes it at the imposter, only to find out that the imposter is Percival. Losing zero composure, Lorraine asks the nosy dude how he managed to enter undetected, and just as Percival admits to knowing every breathing body under the Berlin sky, Lorraine clocks that he must be on the list. She asks Percival about the sloppy French intelligence lurking around her, but Percival denies any connection to her. Deciding to let go of the situation, Lorraine visits an information bank disguised as a jewelry shop to request certain information. But when she's told to come back the next day, Lorraine finds herself in Spyglass's house, trying to gather any possible clues. In the interrogation room, Kurtzfeld points out that the Russians must have ransacked the place before her arrival, but Lorraine ignores him and reveals that Spyglass was ready to expose Satchel, the infamous double agent. Lorraine comes across a questionable photo of Percival and Spyglass, and all of a sudden,
Percival and I see.
The police barge into the building. Lorraine fights her way out of the ambush, filled with suspicions that Percival must have set her up. Back at her apartment, Lorraine straps herself in spy wires and drops by Percival's home to question him about the picture she found of him in Spyglass's house. Realizing he's been cornered, Percival admits that he forgot to mention he's pals with Spyglass before asking Lorraine to join him for a walk. On the walk, Percival tells Lorraine about Bakhtin and Bromovich, and she decides to set up a meet cute with Bromovich at a popular bar. As planned, she meets Bromovich by the bar, and while Bromovich is in the middle of flirting with her, Delphine, the French spy tailing Lorraine, swoops in and pretends to save Lorraine from Bromovich. Seeing as the two women were giving off a hostile vibe, Bromovich walks off, but not without promising to catch Lorraine's attention another day. With a failed attempt at concealing her identity, Delphine pretends to be an oblivious translator and invites Lorraine to a club nearby, but Lorraine refuses, completely unaware that Percival is watching her from behind. After the club, Lorraine goes back to the jewelry shop to pick up the package she's requested, and just like how she was unaware of Percival in the club, she was also unaware that Percival had planted a mic to spy on her conversations. At her apartment, Lorraine extracts the name of her new contact from the watch before bouncing out to meet him. In the interrogation room, Kurtzfeld asks Lorraine why she had sought out another contact instead of Percival's, who was assigned to her, and she reminds him that she had been instructed to trust no one. Back to the East Berlin story, as Lorraine is walking to her contact's first meetup location. She suspects that she's been followed. She outsmarts the men around her and manages to pick up the contact's second meetup address, but on her way out of the building, one of the KGB men catches up to her, and she easily strikes him down. The Russian agent from before corners Lorraine and beats her into a pulp, but luckily for her, the agent kicks her out of his sight, creating an avenue for her to escape. Lorraine finally gets to the meeting point with her contact to discuss sneaking Spyglass out of the border. At the other side of the city, Percival tails Bakhtin to the jewelry shop, where he foolishly tries to sell the list. Meanwhile, Lorraine, who decides to play along with the French girl's game, links up with Delphine in the club. She clocks Delphine's real identity and orders her to spill what she knows about Gascoigne's death. But when Delphine reveals that she is a newbie who knows nothing and bangs the living stars out of her, when Gray asks Lorraine if she extracted any information from the French intelligence baddie she banged, Lorraine lies through her teeth that she didn't. Back on the streets of Berlin, After Percival confirms Becton has the watch, he rams a knife through his skull and steals the list. The following day, Kurtzfeld links up with Lorraine to remind her that the clock is ticking and to warn her to stay away from Delphine if she doesn't want an executive to clear her out on her behalf. Kurtzfeld shoves a newspaper into Lorraine, and Lorraine reads between the lines and calls the number on the paper. Meanwhile, Percival is inspecting the list at his apartment and realizes he's screwed after finally decoding who the infamous Satchel is. He grabs his phone and immediately sets up a meetup with Lorraine. And in the meeting, he conveniently leaves out that he has the list and lays the groundwork of convincing her to get spyglass across the border his way. Realizing that Gray had said nothing to her after Percival had told him he had the list, Lorraine curses him under her breath and blames herself for partially trusting Percival and not making spyglass her priority. That night, while Percival sets up a trap with the KGB to kill Spyglass before he spills any information,
I can give you information that will keep the balance.
Lorraine, tucked under Delphine's warm embrace and still clouded with thoughts of suspicion towards Percival, ends her fling with Delphine. The following morning, Percival and Lorraine link up with Lorraine's contact and the infamous Spyglass himself to cook up new identities and every other thing needed for their escape. But unknown to Lorraine, the KGB soldiers are decked up in hidden places, ready to snipe down Spyglass the moment he steps out of the building. Just before they're done setting everything up, Percival conveniently brings Spyglass's family in and promises to take full responsibility for their safety while Lorraine covers Spyglass. Using the fake mob Lorraine's contact had arranged as coverage, Lorraine and the others slip into the crowd unnoticed. And just as one of the snipers spots them, Lorraine's contact signals the mob to raise their umbrellas to confuse any enemy lurking above. Seeing as the KGB guys won't be able to one-up Spyglass, Percival secludes himself from the crowd and discreetly shoots Spyglass, indirectly causing an opening for the snipers to spot them. Lorraine immediately ushers Spyglass away from the crowd, dodging a bullet on the way. She clocks the location of the sniper and sneaks into the building where they're hiding. In the building, Lorraine is welcomed by two armed men, and just as she's barely able to fight them off, Spyglass tells her about another set of men coming for them. This time around, Lorraine guns them down without much stress. On her way out of the building, another set of men ambushed them, forcing Lorraine and Spyglass to hide inside a room. While hiding, Lorraine asks Spyglass to get something to stop his bleeding, but before he can do anything, one of the men barges into the room. Lorraine, who had hidden behind the door, guns him down immediately. The Russian agent from before shoots his way into the room to finish up what he started the last time. But after many close death occurrences, Lorraine takes him out. She grabs Spyglass and steals a police car, but before she can drive far, another set of KGB men catches up with them. After taking care of the car behind them, another car tries to sabotage them from the front, but Lorraine is lucky to lose them to a truck accident. She drives into a smaller street to check on Spyglass, and just as the two are checking their wounds, Percival's car rams into them, pushing Lorraine and Spyglass straight into the river. Underwater, Lorraine struggles to get Spyglass out of his seat. But when she realizes he is dead, she saves herself. In the interrogation room, Gray blames Lorraine for fumbling her mission, and Lorraine is quick to remind him that the KGB had always been one step ahead of her from the moment she stepped into Berlin. She cleverly adds that she is aware that Gray also distrusted Percival and had used her to shake him down. Seeing that he's been clocked, Gray asks Lorraine to proceed with her story. In Berlin, Lorraine is rescued by her contact, to whom she reveals the death of Spyglass. Feeling confused, Lorraine adds that the KGB was somehow aware of her plans, and she needs to leave as soon as possible, before she ends up like Spyglass. On the other hand, Percival realizes he's screwed when Bursfeld tells him that Lorraine had survived. Feeling paranoid and confused, Lorraine ransacks her apartment for a mic, and soon realizes that Percival had planted one in her jacket. On cue, Delphine drops by, and Lorraine is quick to tell her that Percival had set them up, and they needed to bounce out of the city ASAP before they end up in trash bags. But instead of scrambling out of the city, Delphine naively decides to threaten Percival with his secrets. In retaliation, Percival shows up at her house and squeezes the life out of her lungs. Lorraine arrives at the scene a second late, and she feels the air get knocked out of her lungs when she realizes her lover is dead. Meanwhile, Percival burns down his apartment and tries to skip out of the city. But Lorraine, who'd seen many pictures of evidence of Percival's meetings with the KGB in Delphine's apartment, corners him. She shoots him across the chest and accuses Percival of trying to use the KGB to kill like a coward. Covering up his failure with humor, Percival tells Lorraine that he read the list and that Lorraine had featured heavily in it. He explains that killing Spyglass was the only way to save both their skins, but Lorraine, who is clearly not interested in whatever Percival had to say, grabs the watch off his wrist and offs him. Gray feels a vein in his brain pop at Lorraine's story, and he asks her if she had enough evidence to justify killing the head of station of the British intelligence. Lorraine asks him who he thinks he is to question her decisions, and Gray immediately reminds her that he is her superior. Lorraine cleverly points out that the whole mission was arse to save his arse, and conceal the sins they had all committed in the Cold War. Gray reminds Lorraine that her job is to clean up after everyone's mess, and Lorraine coldly informs him that she had uncovered their infamous traitor, aka Satchel, and brought him to justice. She releases the many pictures of Percival closing deals with the KGB, and Gray immediately asks her to bring out the list. Lorraine lies that she has no idea where the list is, and C, who was at the other end of the glass, decides it's best to wrap up the case, bury it, and place Lorraine on a decade-long leave. 3 days later, Lorraine links up with Bremovich, who refers to her as the Satchel, to submit the list to him. Minutes later, Lorraine admits that she thought she would be killed after delivering the watch, and on cue, 3 KGB men walk into the room, one of them with a trash bag, and Bremovich's men ask her to stand on the trash bag to reduce the mess. Quietly and swiftly, Lorraine draws out a gun from an ice container and guns down one of the men. The other 2 begin shooting at Lorraine, but Lorraine takes cover behind a couch and shoots them both. Other men rush into the room to contain the situation, but Lorraine takes care of them and shoots Bremovich in the neck. Just before finishing the thug off, Lorraine tells him that she never worked for him. It was the other way around, and every false intel she gave him was a rip in the Iron Curtain. She mentions wanting her life and finishes up the job. After everything, Lorraine's trusted contact orders his men to drive her to a private jet, where she links up with Kurtzfeld, who spent the whole day fake-hating Lorraine, to exonerate Lorraine, aka Satchel, from the suspicious gaze of the British intelligence. Thank you for sticking to the end of my video. Please do me the biggest favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you in the next video.